It's 4th of July and your tomato plant should be bursting with life right now. You should have giant clusters, even some red ones if you look down under here. We got our first red small tomatoes, I guess, off of the San Marzanos. So it's a good time of year and it's only going to get better from here. But if your tomato plants aren't doing that right now, stick with me and I'm going to show you how to get them that way. Now, before we get into this, I want to make it absolutely clear I'm not sponsored by anybody. I don't get paid by anybody. I need to. These are just products that I believe in, that I really use. Now, we went over this in the beginning of the season, that your soil quality is the most important thing. I get a lot of questions around this time of year because a lot of people's plants aren't performing like they're supposed to, and it's a ton of people don't realize how important fertilizer is. Everybody's in this organic thing. Now, trust me, I know. We want as clean as possible. We want to eat as clean as possible. We don't want pesticides. We don't want things that are going to hurt us. But you got to remember, when it comes to fertilizer and that term organic, your plant doesn't know the difference. Nitrogen is nitrogen. Phosphorus is phosphorus. Same with potassium. Your plant is also a filter. Think about out in nature, the dirty water and all that kind of stuff. The plant's roots are taking that up and filtering that into whatever it's growing. So it opens up a whole lot of conversations in a lot of different directions that honestly, I don't want to have. You do you, I do me. And that's the way it should be. So I have a very extensive morning routine because I fertilize a lot more than your average person. I'm also trying to grow really large vegetables this year. One of them that I'm going for is actually right behind you here. If you follow hot peppers at all, that one's a Dorset Naga plant. A bunch of the other pepper channels. I think it started, don't quote me on this if I messed this up. I think it started with Chili Chump, Sean over on the Chili Chump channel, and he got seeds from the original big one, Nigel, that they grew in a lab, and then he grew a giant one, and then I think he started the challenge every year that I haven't gotten in on. Up until this year, I really just didn't have the time, honestly. And we get bigger every year. That's just how it works. Let's see, I saw Pepper Geek got in on it, and Pepper Geek did it. And then I saw Pepper Guru got in on it and grew just a massive plant. I forget, don't quote me, but I think he had over 2,000 pods on that plant. Something like that. But, I mean, he's known for giant pepper plants anyway. So I'm trying to take some cues. I've always grown in 10-gallon buckets like I have over here. So you can see I've got 10-gallon buckets lined up all over the place. And my pepper plants get huge. I mean, they get as tall as I am and they bush way out. But until you go and look at Pepper Guru's, the way he does it with those giant pots. I mean, I think he said it was 100 and some gallon. Yeah, I forget what it was. But anyway, those giant, well over 100-gallon pots, and then using fencing for cages that go all the way up. That's big. So I'm making that transition. This is the first year going bigger than like 10, 15-gallon to a couple 90 gallons that I have here behind you. Back here and back here are the two 90-gallon. So I got seeds from Sean over at the Chili Chump channel, and we're going to attempt to grow a really big one too and just see what happens. Maybe it's a dud, maybe it's a giant. Then I got a comment on my channel last week about an old video that I did at the end of the last year about nutrients and fertilizing using the hydroponic nutrients. And it's something that I don't see people talk about enough. But all hydroponic is nutrients in the water. That's what got me thinking years ago about, hydroponic nutrients are a lot cheaper for a lot larger quantity. And once you put the nutrients in the water and mix it up, it's no different than, chemically or the components in it aren't any different than a regular one that you would buy that's for soil. I started researching it, and I've told you my past before. I've grown other things. Even back then, my first step was into Fox Farms, and then as time went by, you get a little more knowledgeable, a little bit, you get into it a little bit more, and you meet more people. And I really found out a lot of people were using General Hydroponics. So I've got my setup out here in the backyard, which I guess I might as well just say the garden at this point. And since I do this quite regularly, all I need, because all I do it, measure it in is tablespoons, is a measuring spoon and your nutrients. So you can look around at all the different nutrients, especially in the hydroponic world. That's where you're going to see the general hydroponics, you know, the most. But you can look around, you can try all different things, but I'm going to tell you right now, even though people call it a basic nutrient setup, it's a 3-part. I'm telling you, it's easy and it works. It works well. So there's a ton of people in the cannabis world that are growing giant plants, like record-setting plants, using general hydroponics. So last year was the first year I decided to start increasing and going heavy and actually seeing what these plants can take. And then this year I'm doing it again. So it's a 3-part setup. You've got your flora, it's the micro, that's the purple. You've got your flora grow, that's your green, and you'll see they have the 3 independent numbers. Your nitrogen, your phosphorus, and your potassium number is on each one of these. But because it's a 3-part, you can change how you mix it for what you're really looking to get out of it. More bloom, more vegetative growth. So when you've got a little more control is what I like. And then you have your bloom, that's your pink, 054. They also, and they do a ton more. But I also keep CalMag on hand, even though, if you look, the micro has calcium in it, which a lot of things don't have calcium and magnesium built into it. But these do. This is an all-in-one solution. And trust me when I say, if you start doing this, you're gonna see a difference immediately. So let's talk about frequency. For a lot of my big garden back here, especially the horse troughs, I typically fertilize every Friday, once a week. But for the pots, that's a whole different story. Think about your soil is the number one thing that your plants are eating. That's what they feed on, that's what they live in. But most people I know are growing in 5-gallon buckets. That's not a lot of soil. And no matter what soil you put in here, it's not gonna last all year long the way they say. They can make those claims all they want, but they're not fooling me. Now I go a step, well actually a step and then another step up. I do the 10-gallon buckets. And a lot of your average gardeners, or like my son said the other day, normal gardeners, a lot of them think that the 10-gallon is a big jump. And as you can see behind me, I do a lot of them. Then we do, let me take you over and show you, we do the 15-gallon. The polymer barrel ones, you can get them at Home Depot or Walmart, even with Walmart online. These are the 15-gallon. This is one of my Carolina Reapers. Then I really wanted to see what pot size does for overall growth. So this is another Dorset Naga plant that I started at the exact same time as my mini Nigel. And we're going to see how big this one gets versus how big this one gets. So that's a 90-gallon grow bag. Now, for reference between a 10-gallon and a 90-gallon, when I mix my soil, actually, inside, there we go, inside this big wheelbarrow right here, and it is a large one, I do 1 of the 2.2 cubic feet peat moss, 2 of the eco compost 1.5 cubic feet, so actually 3 cubic feet on that, and then I put a bunch of perlite in there with it. I can fill 3.5, but between 3 and 4 of my 10-gallon buckets with that mixture. But 2 90-gallons back here, I didn't talk about it, but in the other 90-gallon, I have 2 of my giant cherry tomatoes that I've told that story about over and over again. And I want to see how big I can make those cherry tomato plants. Okay, so back on topic, you got to think, even in the 90-gallon, that's its home. That's where all of its nutrients are coming from, and that's not a lot. Tomatoes and peppers are super heavy feeders. Your Flora Micro is going to be your all-around, your base nutrient. That's going to be the one you always put in first. Then I go to the green, the grow, I put it in next, and then I put the bloom in last. Now usually once a week, every other week, something like that, depending on how I feel, I'll put some CalMag in, especially in the tomatoes. I try like crazy to ward off that blossom end rot. I still usually get it a lot of times at the beginning of season. You pick those off and then it goes away really fast. Not always, but I do still see it. So if you do get blossom end rot, don't panic. As soon as you see it on the green tomato, pull those off. And usually you get 5 or 6 tomatoes in, it'll go away. Under normal circumstances, it'll go away. One big thing that's always talked about, and it's talked about by the general hydroponic people too, don't ever mix hydroponic nutrients together in their concentrated form. You want to make sure you put one in at a time and make sure it's stirred into water well before you add your next one. So here is how I do it. I've got a 2.6 gallon watering can. I will turn on the hose full blast to the count of 10. Now there's a reason for that count of 10, I'll tell you here in just a second. Start with your micro, your purple. At the top now, we're at the top of the season, I'm doing, Rocky, let me talk. I'm doing a tablespoon of each. Now I do that 10 count, so my spoon will reach the water level and I can rinse it off. Then you got to come back in with the hose and just blast it good. Make sure that micro gets mixed in to your 10 count water that was already in there. Then we're going to add the green, same thing, 1 tablespoon. Now it's because we're talking about 2.6 gallons. And you're going to have to adjust it depending on how big the container is that you're using. Then blast it again, make sure they're mixed in good, and add the bloom. And again, rinse off really good. At this point, if I'm adding the CalMag, I'll just put in at the same, or at the same level at least with the bloom, and then go ahead and top it off. If you don't have one of these plastic folding tables out in your garden, what are you doing? It'll change your life. I'm just teasing. I just put this table out here this year too, but it's a life changer because it's plastic. And when you're all done doing all this, any drip, any soil, blast it with a hose, you're ready to rock and roll. You can buy this as a trio set on Amazon. That's where I get it. Most of my hydroponics stores here in town, they open and then they close. I think they're a front for other stuff because they always have a ton of product inside those indoor grow stores and super high dollar equipment, but you don't ever hardly see anybody in there. So yeah, who knows? So anyway, the one I was using, it closed. I'm back to Amazon. You can buy the trio set, the purple, green, and pink, or you can buy it in gallon jugs in the trio set. And I think the gallon jug, I want to say without looking, it's like 75 bucks. But it's a gallon of each. That'll last almost anybody all season long. I start out the season when they're little and I start giving them fertilizer from the beginning. I started at a teaspoon for every 2.6 gallon of the watering can, and then I slowly up it until I get up to the tablespoon, and a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. If you look on the back here, they give you the instructions of how to mix it. You can use that as a guideline if you want to, but if you look, even in the aggressive vegetative growth where we're at right now, we're starting to get some flowering and blooming, but we're still in that aggressive vegetative growth for a while. So if you look, they're calling for 3 green, 2 purple, 1 pink, or the bloom. Every little cycle's different. Cuttings and seedlings, general purpose, aggressive vegetative, transition to bloom, and that's a 2-2-2. I've played with mine and mixed mine, and I just slowly up it, and push past. Because you got to remember that those were formulated for the roots to be hanging in it all the time. We're not doing that. We're pouring it into our soil. The plant uptakes it, the rest evaporates, and then when you water it regularly, it usually washes it out of the pot, or at least washes a bunch of it out of the pot. So I've gone beyond that, and if you do what I'm telling you that I do, and it hurts your plant in any way, play with it and figure it out on your own. I don't want to be named at fault because you did a tablespoon to every 2.6 gallons, although it won't hurt it. Now let's talk about frequency. So my baby Nigel plant back here, almost every watering, at least every morning, I'm watering it with the 1 tablespoon per 2.6 gallon, and I'm flooding it pretty good. Then in the afternoon, a lot of times I'll come back with regular water, just so it doesn't get, you hear about the salts and that inside of fertilizer. So give it a chance to wash the soil away before the next feeding. But again, I'm trying to make that thing huge. The main part of my backyard garden, the horse troughs, is every Friday. My tomato plants that are in the 10-gallon buckets behind you are every other day. Now I also water twice a day. That's another thing that I'm seeing pop up in a lot of these Facebook groups that I'm in. Already a ton of chatter about how the plants aren't doing very well. How are you people in hot climates keeping your plants alive? You know, that kind of thing. Multiple waterings, and I know it's a pain in the behind. But out here today, when I just came out, I think we were 89 degrees. So we actually got a reprieve because it's been in the mid to upper 90s. We've touched 100 already over here, and it's been hot. So minimum morning, very first thing, I come out here at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it takes me about an hour to go around the entire backyard and water, get it all set. And then in the evening, sometime 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, usually before dinner, I'll come out here and do it again. And yes, it is a lot. It is a big commitment. And honestly, I think that's why a lot of people don't stick with gardening. I constantly preach that everybody should have a garden and then trade off in a neighborhood, you know, reduce our independence on these grocery stores and the government and all this other crap. So when you're thinking about what my son calls a normal garden, it doesn't take that long. I mean, one my side that goes all the way around, I do it in about an hour. And I like watering. So watering is time you get to spend with your plants and actually look at them and make sure they're in good shape and know what's going on with them. And people can get on here and tell me that it doesn't work, whatever they want, but this right here is my tomato plants. It's my San Marzanos, 4th of July. Look at that. They're huge. And they get this way every year. And I've already got a ton of green tomatoes, and I've got a whole row of them going all the way down that way. So same thing with these. I'll just go in with a 4 or a 6 count on each side. It works for me. So I'm going to stick with it. So take a look at this guy. Look at all that fruit in there. And they're just giant. And they're going to get a lot bigger. Now, take a look at this. I just saw it when I was back there. But this is what I was telling you about. As much nutrient and calcium and magnesium and all that as I give my plants, a lot of times some of your starting ones will have this blossom end rot. A big part of me wonders if it's not just because of that fast growth and it's using up all those nutrients as fast as it can. But I go through, I pluck these off, and it's very noticeable if you haven't seen or been around blossom end rot before. This is your side that connects to the plant. It'll hang this way, and if you look at the bottom, it'll be black. And as the fruit gets bigger, so does the black spot typically. Pull those off. You don't want your plant even putting any energy into that, and just get rid of it. Everything in my experience says it'll just disappear on its own. So here you can see I've got these in, it's 4 of my San Marzano plants in 10-gallon buckets, not even in my giant raised beds, and they're chest high on me right now. They're going to get a lot bigger. The wind came through here and I got to go. I hate doing single poles. Honestly, if you have the chance and you have the money, do the square cages for regular home stuff. Do the square cage. The round cages are usually junk. The square cages are what I have the best bet with. The 2 that we were just at were square caged. So I don't see a lot of people out here telling you, but I'm here telling you, hydroponic nutrients changed the game for me in soil. And I am a soil gardener. Even back in the day, I preferred soil over hydroponic. But when I finally figured out you can use hydroponic nutrients in soil, everything went crazy. So if you get the chance, give it a try. Do a test. Take 1 pot and just buy a couple of these, they're cheap individually, and try it all season long next year. Or if you have one that's struggling this year, try what I'm telling you to do, and I'll bet you it turns around in your favor and that plant wakes up and gets nice and healthy. If you're gonna put the time and the energy into gardening, it's not easy. I know a ton of people out there who've never done it that think you drop some seeds in the ground and you get a whole bunch of crops. That's not how it works. And if you're watching my channel, you probably already know that. So if you're gonna put all your time and energy into growing these plants, make them the best they can and give hydroponic nutrients a try. Now, if you're completely stuck on the organic thing, they have an organic line of hydroponic nutrients. You could try that too. I've personally never used it, so I can't endorse it, but I can tell you general hydroponics is the real deal, and it will give you more harvest than you've ever dreamed of. So never forget what I always say, you don't have to be a prepper to be prepared. I'm Steve with the Chili Prepper channel, and we'll see you back here next time.